Well, obviously, we're always looking at opportunities, and a number of opportunities have come to us. We haven't been able to announce any of these, but we hoped in the next, few months to be able to announce things that we've done to acquire additional resource properties in the area of our new milling project, and that's the key. Uranium vanadium properties in the close vicinity of that mill are what we're looking at, and there's some opportunities in that area. And we're seeing now with the depressed uranium price, which is probably good for property acquisitions, when the price was up and going up, people's price for their property acquisitions was high. I think they're more realistic now. We're seeing that. So that's a real opportunity we see in the next few months before, obviously, the uranium price starts to move upward again. So we hope to announce a few of those things in the next couple of months.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a quick reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy any shares, products or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. And my guest today is George Glasier, CEO for Western Uranium and Vanadium. George, always great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Always good to see you.
Thank you. George, the company released mid-year update last week, and I would like to unpack few topics from that press release, and I have few questions from my followers as well, your shareholders. My first question is related to a shift to a more conservative stance, increasingly focus on cost control and strategic discipline. Can you provide me with more details of this new approach, and how does it affect your business going forward?
Sure. Well, in 24, we spent a great deal of money buying equipment, getting the Sunday mine ready for full production. That process is complete now, so we can cut back our spend considerably, especially now that the Sunday mine is ready for, almost full production. There's a little bit more to do, but not much. So the spending that we've just recently occurred is been paid off. So now we're moving forward with a smaller mining crew. We're still going to develop some additional mines, I think, as the press release said. We're moving into the Sage mine, which is a permitted mine in Utah, which is a smaller mine, but it will be ready for production at the same time that our processing plant is ready. So we need to do a little bit refurbishment in there, and that's what our mining crew will do, our reduced mining crew. And part of that is because we really don't need to do a lot of development at the Sage mine. Just refurbish the portal, go in, clean up some of it, and that'll be ready. And then we're moving the mine crew to the Band 4. As you know, the Band 4 was recently reclaimed, but that has a great deposit in it, and we're looking at actually using the shaft that we basically closed as a ventilation shaft, but putting in a new decline to access the ore. The ore in that mine now is a bit away from the original shaft, so it would be much more efficient to put a new decline into the new ore body of that one. And so that's a project that our miners will be starting on after we complete the Sage. But we do not need to increase the mining staff to do that, because that also, with the mining crew we now have and with the equipment we now have, we can have that mine ready to go when the mill is ready. So it just made sense to cut back and not spend at the same rate we spent in 24, and also not buy any more equipment. Right now we're pretty well equipped for our mining at the Sunday. Now, once we get full production going at all three mines, there will be some need for additional equipment, but that'll be several years down the road. So it's best not to spend the money now to dilute shareholders until, obviously, we believe the market is going to be substantially better in a couple of years, with also share prices being substantially higher, which means raising money at a substantially high price is probably higher price is good for our shareholders.
Yeah, got it. George, the press release mentions delivering of 792 tons of mine material to White Mesa Mill under the ore purchase agreement. Can you clarify the expected timeline for the revenue recognition from this delivery and its impact on the Q3 2025 financials? I mean, what revenue are we talking here and what is the cost of mining this ore?
Yeah. Well, obviously, we started delivering ore in June, a little bit in June, then in July we had a pretty good month. We're continuing to deliver ore in August. But one of our biggest issues was transportation. And because the uranium ore is considered a hazardous material, you have to have special licenses for your trucks and your drivers. The truckers, the independent truckers around the area are not prepared to do that. So we had to gear up to haul with our trucks. And that slowed us down. And also is slowing us down because we've only got one truck right now that's capable of delivering ore. So we're delivering 2 loads a day, and we're delivering 40 to 50 tons a day, and we're delivering 4 to 5 days a week. Okay, that gives you the kind of the tonnage. So it's much slower than we thought. When we contracted the truckers to put on additional trucks, they just don't have the hazardous waste qualifications and are not willing to do it. The insurance is fairly high when you're doing that kind of hauling. So we're going to do it ourselves, and that slowed down the tonnage. The deliveries that we made in June, the first payment should be coming in September. Once we closed out that lot, early in July, they basically had 30 days to pay us, and so it'll probably be late this month or early September when we receive the first payments for the first lots that were closed. And so then the deliveries that we made in July will be closed out and have been closed out, so those payments will also come late September. And again, the revenue for those will be reported. Unfortunately, the terms of the contract are confidential. We cannot give you the price that's being paid. But you'll see that when we report the financials. Obviously, you'll see tons and you'll see revenue in our
Of course.
financials. And that has to be reported. We're allowed to report that, but not the terms of the contract. So the
Understood.
revenue
Understood.
will show up on our financials certainly during the third quarter.
Sure, sure.
We had no revenue to report during the second quarter, but the third quarter will have revenue.
Got it, got it. George, one other thing that press release notes is the completion of 22,000 feet of horizontal drilling at the Sunday Mine Complex, confirming 5 minerals pockets. What are the next steps to quantify these reserves and how will this data influence your production ramp-up strategy?
Right. Well, again, our underground drilling program was successful into the point that we did define additional ore zones, but going horizontally through the ore zones did not define the thickness of the ore. And so when the geologist did the calculation, he says, I can see all this ore, but I can't tell you how thick it is, so we can't quantify the ore. It'll take surface drilling to go through those ore zones to determine the thickness and thus, the quantity of uranium in them, which it's just natural, but we now know where to drill from the surface when we get ready to do that to increase the reserve. Now again, some of that country is pretty rough without roads on it, so drilling in that country from the surface, will be difficult and costly, but we will plan that, probably not in the next year, but after that, clearly when there's cash available. Our current budget doesn't have drilling from the surface included. So again, it's a little disappointing that we weren't able to report resources, but we understand what the geologist said. But he says we hit all these ore zones, but without determining how thick it is, you really can't determine, obviously, the total resource there.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. You've highlighted constructing of the Mustang mineral processing plant. Can you provide an update on the licensing progress and how do you plan to balance its development with near-term spending reductions while leveraging the strength's corporate image?
We've collected two quarters of data, the background data, to update the original data collected for the mill. We have 2 more quarters to go. That should be finished by the beginning of 26. At that point, we're ready to start the application process to submit the application to the state early in 26, probably during the first quarter of 26, early in the second quarter. So that application, when it's submitted, will probably take the state 9 months to a year to act on. So we're looking at construction potentially starting early 27. Obviously, there's questions about the financing with cutting back. We've not cut back our effort on the mill. In our existing spending plan, we're going forward at the rapid rate. You know, we have to do certain things. We can't speed up the data collection. That just takes time. So we're moving at the same rate that we had planned. We have not cut back any of our spending on the processing plant activities. We think that's crucial to go forward, obviously, as fast as we can to have the plant ready, let's say in early 28. We're seeing some demand from other companies that are interested in coming into that processing plant. And we've talked to a number of these companies that says, okay, we also are very interested in the time frame so they can bring their minds on. We will have extra capacity, as we've announced, extra capacity for other parties to come to the mill. And now we're seeing the interest by those parties. So again, we don't want to slow down the process because we want to make sure that we're ready when the market recovers, and we think certainly in 28, you know, you're going to see a different uranium market than you see today.
Yeah, agreed on that. Agreed. George, we didn't discuss kinetic separation technology in our prior interviews. I mean, we didn't discuss it a lot. That has been highlighted as a potential game changer for you with ongoing discussions around its implementation. What regulatory hurdles remain? And how does the Sunday mine drilling data support its feasibility?
Well, right now, kinetic separation requires a milling license. Now, whether that's going to be going forward in the future, you know, we're not certain. But right now, you have to actually license it as a milling activity rather than a mining activity. And that's why it has not been used at the Sunday mine as we were planning, because licensing for a milling operation is much more costly and lengthy than mining operations. We are going to license the process into the new processing plant. So the idea is to use it there. The ore would be upgraded at the site of the mill rather than at the mine site. So that's still underway, and we still have to incorporate that into our licensing application. But that's the plan, to reduce the cost of milling by using that process at the mill site.
Okay. I want to ask you about Maverick site. Maverick site is actually pre-processing facility rather than a full mill. What's the plan over here? I mean, have you considered anything else with this, or you will go with Maverick? What's the plan?
Obviously, we will use that site. That's the plan, to use that as the upgrading site. We believe that as soon as we get the license for our mill, we'll be able to establish that the waste material coming out of the kinetic separation process should not be considered milling waste. And we think then we can convince the NRC that we can use it as a mining process, not a milling process. And there's some discussion right now going on with the NRC. In fact, there's going to be a license issued in September, we understand, for that process to be used for reclaiming old mine waste. And that's through a company called DISA. And we met with DISA just this last week, and they said their license is going to be issued in September. Now, they don't have a uranium site yet to apply that to. One of the sites, of course, they're planning to do it is down on the Navajo reservation. But with that process being approved, apparently, for at least cleaning up sites, we think that will show there's no need to have licensing requirements for milling when you're using these at new mining sites. So we think in the next 2 years, you're going to see a substantial change in the regulations required for the kinetic separation process. And that's why we believe, of course, the Maverick site will be an ideal site to upgrade the material from our mine over there, as well as others in that area that we're talking to ship the upgraded ore to the Mustang mill.
Got it. George, let's talk about the other project. You mentioned the Sage Mine specifics. However, the recent press release mentions exploring less capital-intensive projects like permitting the Topaz mine. What specific steps are underway to restart this project?
Well, we drilled a monitor well. We had to drill one monitor well at the Topaz, and that is now done. And so we should be ready to submit our permit application in about 2 months to re-permit the Topaz mine. And that mine obviously is a mining claim on BLM, but the state will first process our application. And the BLM has been directed, obviously, by the Trump administration to act very quickly on these permits. So we think that the permit will go fairly quickly through the state and then through the BLM. So the Topaz could be ready certainly in about 1 year for us to go back into the Topaz. Now the portal has not been closed. We have done no reclamation, and we don't need to do the reclamation as long as we submit our new applications. So the portal is ready to go, the mine is ready to go, with the new permit being issued, we think, within about a year, with very little additional capital needed because the monitor wells are in and ready to go.
Sure, sure. What about San Rafael? What drilling or feasibility studies are planned for the next 12 months to advance its development?
The San Rafael needs monitor wells. It needs a minimum of 3 monitor wells and maybe 5 monitor wells. And those, we've got a bid on those things. It's about $100,000 per well. So the capital to spend on those wells, we're planning to do that probably in the middle of 26. We might do it sooner, but in our current spending, we're waiting until probably middle of 26 before we start those wells. Again, drillers are just not available to do those wells right now. So it's availability of drilling contractors plus the cost is delaying that project a little bit.
Got it. Correct me if I'm wrong. San Rafael project is under state land and not BLM anymore, right?
Yeah, and that's a real plus. Yeah, the BLM made a land trade just recently where the state now owns that land, and obviously we do not have to permit it through the BLM. We only go through the state permitting process. So again, by delaying the drilling, it does not delay the permitting because only the state will be required to permit that mine. So that's why we decided delaying the drilling would not impair the construction of that project because the BLM is not going to be involved in it, which is a real plus.
Yeah, got it. What about Hansen Taylor Ranch? Are there any initiatives over there? What are you currently doing over there? What's the plan?
Well, obviously, there's some rumors out that we might be joint venturing that with Global Uranium and Enrichment. We've had several discussions. It makes sense to put that project together. They just came out with a recent PEA on how they were going to mine it. And one of the things that we've looked at that, and we somewhat agree with that, we think that there's additional work to be done to decide how to mine that. But that project is going to move forward, whether it's in a joint venture or some other arrangement. But we're going to certainly in this next year move the Hansen Taylor forward to decide the mining method and then start the permitting on that project.
Okay. Is there any other updates on other non-core assets claims you have?
Well, obviously, we're always looking at opportunities, and a number of opportunities have come to us. We haven't been able to announce any of these, but we hoped in the next, few months to be able to announce things that we've done to acquire additional resource properties in the area of our new milling project, and that's the key. Uranium vanadium properties in the close vicinity of that mill are what we're looking at. And there's some opportunities in that area. And we're seeing now with the depressed uranium price, which is probably good for property acquisitions, when the price was up and going up, people's price for their property acquisitions was high. I think they're more realistic now. We're seeing that. So that's a real opportunity we see in the next few months, before obviously the uranium price starts to move upward again. So we hope to announce a few of those things in the next couple of months.
Okay. You mentioned vanadium. Are you mining or stockpiling any vanadium in this year?
Obviously, we're mining the vanadium, and the vanadium in the ore that we're shipping to Energy Fuels is being shipped to the mill. And that's one of the reasons the vanadium price has been depressed for a couple of years. We're not emphasizing that right now. We're saving most of the production for our own site. The White Mesa Mill right now does not recover vanadium. They basically changed the circuit to a rare earth circuit. So again, the economics of delivering vanadium to the White Mesa Mill are not very good. So we're not planning to deliver a great deal of vanadium under that contract.
Understood. George, final question. How will the news flow look going forward? I mean, what can investors expect?
Well, I think the news flows going forward will be related to the projects that we've announced in our update here. What we're doing at the various mines. Obviously, you'll see some news about the delivery of the ore as that comes out, as the financial information comes out. And again, property acquisitions and hopefully something major with the Hansen Taylor in the next few months.
I look forward to see the news flow. That was George Glasier, CEO of Western Uranium and Vanadium. George, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.